What's up, guys? It's your girl, Twilight. Today, we're going to be talking about healing the wounded masculine in women. Why is this important? Because what needs to be understood about masculine and feminine energy, it's not just something that is embodied in either gender. It is embodied in both genders. Now, this isn't a message of gender fluidity. It is just a fact. The law of gender is a universal law. But it is also an exchange between the masculine and the feminine, which makes that exchange formidable so that each part can operate at its highest capacity. Feminines that are not protected, that do not have stability, that are constantly having to figure it out, that are constantly having to deal with situations and be competent and accomplished in order to achieve those things and not getting the proper support, will in turn have to be in their active masculine to achieve certain things. It becomes wounded when the feminine expresses itself, who is normally in its masculine, and then that is exploited. So many of you know, in 2018, I was in a relationship with someone with high narcissistic qualities. Normally, I was accustomed to being with males who didn't really like that I was, a huge giver. And that's another misconception. The constant giving and the inability to receive is actually a masculine quality. So women who overgive are actually more so in their masculine, in which case if you're an overgiver and then you're with a male who's a taker or a receiver, he's actually in his feminine. So that's very interesting to know. But when I was with this particular individual, they were very okay with the exploitation and felt very entitled and really actually took from me. And for a while, I thought that, okay, I'd found someone who can handle that about me, quote unquote, handle that about me. But that turned out not to be accurate. The person felt good with exploiting me. So here I was exposing my most vulnerable part, only to find out that I was being used and exploited, and I was being genuine and sincere. Now, after the relationship ended, I was mentored and coached to just forget about it, just get over it, which would have caused me to suppress that emotionally. Instead, I did the exact opposite. I became very vulnerable. I experienced what's called the dark night of the soul. And I went through states of really going back into my inner childhood and really seeking insight and knowledge about how and why this type of behavior came to be inside of me. Now, one of the things I talk about often is the Black experience, because obviously I'm a person of color, so I know more about the urban Black experience. One of the biggest things that I notice is being a child that was raised by a single mother, you must understand that my mother and any single mother will have to be in her active masculine to rear her children. But it isn't always the healthiest form of masculine. Now, is it? Being aggressive, suppressing their emotions, getting it done, suppressing their anger, suppressing their pain, never being able to really just truly relax and exist and not even having a clue what that is, feeling that they're only good enough when they produce. If a woman has a child by a man, and even if she's doing it just to say, placate attachments or keep the man around, which is a terrible reason to do it. But if someone has that codependent nature and they do that, that is the highest form of expression of love. And if that woman is rejected by the man who she had the child for, even if her reasons were not altruistic, that can devastate her. Now she's left with having to financially care for the children, which may become very difficult for her, emotionally and psychologically care for them. And again, when a woman is not protected, because remember, her heart was not protected, her body was not respected. And it can be a multitude of reasons why. There could be some character defects in her. But either way, abandoning a woman with leaving her with children to raise will ensure that more than likely, if she does not get the help that she needs, she will have to develop some very unhealthy coping skills in order to survive. And in that survival mode, she is going into her wounded masculine. So when I was going through my dark night of the soul and I became very vulnerable to that, that was one thing I had to admit that I saw growing up. And I was repeating those patterns in my adult life unconsciously. And I did not understand why. And unfortunately, I had allowed my mother's pain to become my own because I didn't understand how to help her. I remember wanting to see her happy and see her in a relationship, even if it meant fabricating a relationship, even if it meant pretending like bad relationships were good relationships in order for her to feel as if though she'd finally overcome this deep down rejection that she felt. And that was the nature of me being empathic from the get-go. But being an empath with weak boundaries is extremely self-destructive. And so I developed those self-destructive behavior tendencies of taking on other people's pain and wearing it as a badge of honor of my own, as a show of loyalty and a show of concern. And that particular bad habit, I continue to repeat that pattern throughout my adult life. So unconsciously taking on our parents' pain is something that many of us do. And until we release that by becoming very vulnerable, by speaking truth to power, by allowing ourselves to feel that pain, we will constantly repeat these particular cycles over and over again. I was rigid. I was overly aggressive. I needed to always feel needed. I needed to be right. I was weird about my emotions, and even now I'm still on that journey. And I think culturally, when we look at Black women, people tend to say that Black women are overly aggressive. Well, I think that if Black women are overly aggressive or overly masculine, we must also consider that our counterparts have been overly feminized. And that's pretty clear that that has happened. But I don't think that anyone has spoken very clearly about it in that way. If you call yourself shaming Black women and saying, oh, they're too masculine, you are also equally admitting that our counterparts, which is the males, have been over feminized, which can be true. Because look at the era of Mac Daddy and pimping and playing. It's the exploitation and taking away from women and being a taker. When a man calls himself a womanizer, that's a feminine thing to be. And we don't see it that way. You know, we see the rap videos glorifying it and giving it praise. But really, it's actually a very feminine thing because the man is the gigolo. He's being given to. He's not protecting and providing. And protection and providing is more than just being able to shoot a gun or fight or, become physically aggressive. It's given the feminine clearance to release, to relax, and to know she is safe with her most sacred parts with you. And I think that that's one big chunk of understanding that we are missing in our community. Because if you want more feminine women, you have to have males who embody integrity, who are grounded and are not completely driven by their ego and selfish and pride needs, who are not consistently seeing themselves as victims. Now, obviously, if you go through my prior live videos, we understand the societal ramifications around why Black men feel victimized. That is obvious. But that is a big chunk to the reason why they take on a feminine position, whereby the woman is taking on an active masculine position. And in the absence of fervent, healthy, strong, stable masculine leadership, she's also activating her wounded masculine. So even though I was in a situation where I was not physically being protected by a male in any capacity at all. In fact, I was dealing with males who were inappropriate and crossing my boundaries and still trying to trigger me, and in their active wounded feminine, I still had the courage to be vulnerable. The main thing here was to be vulnerable, to feel it all the way through, to cry it out, to feel the pain, to open my heart chakra, and to allow myself to be open. And in being that open, that is what brought to balance my masculine. Because yes, I still utilize my masculine because I'm supposed to. I'm supposed to be grounded. I can be resilient. I can be a giver. But I give more now to children and babies and people who are open to my giving. I don't force my giving on them. I don't codependently attach myself to other people's issues, you see. And so in that, we've achieved a balance of masculine and feminine energy. And the vulnerability is what helps me to heal the pain behind the aggression that was keeping me from a healthy form of masculine expression within myself. So I hope this has been helpful for you. This is Twilight saying peace, healing, love yourself.